Hi guys, welcome to my channel. It's Vesna here. Thank you so much for stopping by. For today's video, I'm creating two spring themed DIYs for you. So for the first DIY, I'm going to be using three mason jars. Now these jars were from a friend who was throwing them out, and she had asked me if I wanted them, so I said for sure. Now she gave me a whole bunch, so some of them I've used for canning and a few I've used for decor pieces. So you need three jars. They don't have to be mason jars. You can even have, if you have three of the same ones that you've saved from, salsa or something like that, you could use those. And I'm going to be painting them out in a few different colors. I will be mixing the colors. So for the first jar, I will be using the Country Gray from Rustoleaum. For the second, I'll be mixing this warm white and cotton candy pink. And then for the next jar, I'll be mixing these three colors together, the forest green, warm white, and the Pacific blue. Now, I'll also be adding a little bit of that Country Gray to each one of those colors just to get a good mix. And basically what I did was I mixed them all together, and then if I thought it was a little bit dark or not light enough or too not rustic or farmhousey enough, I kind of added a little bit more of the gray, if that makes any sense. But I didn't want it to be like that. I wanted it to be a really muted kind of dull color. Now I did want the jars to look distressed, so I'm only putting like one coat of the paint, and I'm using kind of a coarser brush so that you can kind of see the brush strokes in it, so it looks like these mason jars are really aged. And so as you can see, I'm just doing like a light stroke like that, and then I kind of go over top and add a little bit more, but I only do the one coat. I don't go back over it once they dry. I do on one of them just because I'm patching up a spot that I missed. The next one added a dab of pink and a dab of the warm white, and then I went and I put a little bit more of the pink, and I was using the same brush that I used for the gray with the Country Gray, so it kind of gives it that muted gray look as well, grayish pink look. And then for the third jar, I did a combination of the warm white, the forest green, and then I added a little blob of the gray. I did not wind up using the blue. The blue I will be using for the next project. I thought I might add it in here, but then after I saw the way that it came out, I did not add it. So if you guys haven't been to my channel before, my name is Vesna, and I do all things DIY, home decor on a budget. So all the little DIYs that I make, they are for my home. I do seasonal decor and just any kind of DIYs that I need for my house, I create on this channel, and I try to really do it on a budget. So if that's the kind of stuff you like and you haven't subscribed, please do consider subscribing. And hitting that notification bell so you can see when I make new videos. Once the jars dry, I then need to attach them together. So what I'm actually doing is using a combination of hot glue and Weldbond, and I'm attaching them one to another, and then I'll be attaching a piece of jute rope around, and I'll go a few times around at the bottom and kind of in between, just to kind of give it an illusion of it being a caddy. I'm not going to be carrying this around, but if you wanted to make it a little bit more sturdy, if you're worried that it might fall apart with the glue, it won't, but if you're worried that it will, you can always put a piece of craft, like a craft stick at the bottom, or a piece of wood, or a paint stick, like a stir stick, and attach it to the bottom with some hot glue and some either E6000 or Weldbond, whichever you have, and that will it'll just give you an additional support system for these jars. But I did not use that, but I'm just letting you know, if that's kind of your worry, then you can attach that at the bottom and it'll just stick them all together. Once they were attached, I decided that I wanted to distress them further, so I used some of the Rustoleum decorative glaze in Java. So I applied it with a little brush, a bigger brush, and then I blended everything in with a rag. Don't push too hard, because if you haven't protected these, so sealed them, which I haven't because I wanted to put the decorative glaze on, you might take some of the paint off. So do a really gentle scrub when you blend it all together. And you don't have to do this process. I just wanted them to look a little bit more messy, if that makes sense, or dirty, kind of old, like really, really old. I added the glaze all around, even in the back of the jars, and then I picked up some floral picks at the Dollar Tree. You can put anything you want in this. If you have fresh flowers, I can't wait to use some fresh peonies or forsythia, anything that kind of blooms in the spring, even tulips or hyacinths if you have them. You can use them because these are glass jars, so you can put that in there and you can use them like vases. But because we still have, 15 feet of snow, not literally, but we still have lots of snow and it's very cold outside, I picked up some floral picks at the Dollar Tree, just green ones which remind me of spring, and I popped them into the jars. I absolutely love spring, so I can't wait for the flowers to start coming up. The winter's so long and so dark, and spring just reminds me of of happiness and brightness and sunshine and warmth. So I'm really excited to be doing these spring DIYs and adding these nice florals and putting them all around my house to brighten it up and make it look warmer. So here is what they look like all finished. So I love all things old and rustic looking, and these just turned out exactly the way I wanted them. They look roughed up, old, and like they've been sitting around for a really long time. And on the other hand, they're really cheery and bright with the flowers and the lighter colors. Just like I said, remind me of spring. So a beautiful, easy to do spring farmhouse themed DIY that anyone can do even for free if you have these jars on hand. So really good DIY. This video is a part of a challenge. I haven't done a challenge in a little while, so I thought I'd participate in one. It is hosted by the lovely Diane and Yanni from Deco Easy. They are a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law team, and their channel is really fantastic. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. They do all sorts of cool DIYs, farmhouse theme usually, very beautiful stuff, and they're a lot of fun to watch. So check them out. And they host this challenge together with Kiki, and it's a monthly challenge. Kiki from Kiki's DIYs is amazing. Again, she does everything on a budget. If you guys haven't watched her videos, they're a lot of fun. She's really, really funny. So again, very entertaining to watch. So check both of them out. This challenge, as I said, is a monthly challenge where what we have to do is just use some sort of glue in your project. So I've used lots of glue in this project, so I thought it would be a perfect project to use for this challenge. So I will have their information linked in the video below, and I'll also have the playlist link. So check out the playlist, and you can get lots of inspiration from these amazing creators. The next DIY is really easy too, and I did use scrap that I had around the house, so it was again pretty much free for me to do. So I used another jar. Now this is just a jar, it is not a mason jar, it's just a jar from, I think, artichokes from Costco. So I'm going to be painting it in this Pacific blue, but again I'm adding a little bit of warm white, and I'm going to add some of that country gray from Rustoleaum just to mix it in. You can use any kind of gray if you have it. I don't have, other than a metallic gray, I don't have a gray acrylic paint. I keep on forgetting to buy it whenever I go to the store, but I have this country gray on hand, and the chalk paints do dry out if you don't use them up. At least they have for me. If you guys have a secret to not have them dry out, please let me know. But if you let them sit for too long, they will dry out. So use them if you have them, if you're not going to be using them for something else. And even if you are, use them and you can buy more, because better than having them dry out because you're saving them for a project. So I'm just adding a little bit of that gray, as you can see. And you might be able to find these pastel-y muted colors already pre-prepped if you didn't want to mix them yourself. But basically you need a warm white, a blue, light blue, and a gray. Now the country gray is a little bit more of a brownish gray, but you get the idea. And then I am doing kind of a fuller coverage of this one, a little bit more than the other one, as I wanted it to be more covered than the other one. But again, I'm just doing one layer. I'm not doing more than one coat of it. While that's drying, I go ahead and prepare the backing for this little vase, and I'm using 2 pieces of scrap wood. It was actually a longer piece of wood that I cut in half, and they're about 12 inches. But again, you can use any length you want. This is just what I had, and I made use of it. So I do want it to be wide though. And so it's about 8 inches wide, and I am painting it in the linen white from Rustoleaum. This is all chalked paint, and I'm using the white because again, I find that this big can of paint lasts me much longer than the little acrylic paints would, so I always get the big can of it at Home Depot, and it lasts me quite a bit. So I paint both boards. I cover them pretty well, but I will be distressing it, so even if you don't cover it the best, it's okay because, like I said, I'm distressing it, so it's not the end of the world. And then I'm going to be attaching the boards together. To attach them, I'm using just wood glue, this LePage wood glue, as well as hot glue. The hot glue I always put on when I can't clamp things together or when I want to be working with them a lot faster than it takes to dry. Probably a better idea to put hot glue on one side and the other glue on the other side, but I wasn't really thinking and I just did it this way. And then I also go ahead and on the back, I just put on half of a paint stick. So I cut it in half and I just put one half at the top and one half at the bottom just to give it an additional little enforcement. After I give this time to set a little bit, just a couple minutes, I go ahead and I distress it, and I distress it using the same blue combination of blue paint that I used to paint the jar. And I'm just dry brushing it on. So dry brushing is when you take a little bit of paint and dab it off and then apply just as you can see, just like a light coat of the paint on there. And like I said, I'm just distressing it, and if I put too much, I add a little bit of the white, and it's not really a big deal to, if you've put too much on, you're like, I don't like the way this looks, you just repaint over it. And then I also add a little bit of the espresso brown from like an acrylic paint from Dollar Tree, an espresso brown, and I dry brush that on just to get it to look a little bit more distressed. And I probably should have done this before I started distressing it, but I scraped off any of the glue that was coming out from them being glued together. And then I go ahead to attach the jar. Originally I was going to have this hang on the wall and I was going to attach the jar with a clamp. However, the clamp that I had was too small for the jar, and our Home Depot is curbside pickup only because of the lockdown, and I just felt awkward ordering just a clamp, so I didn't bother going to get it. So I changed my mind, and then I decided that I was going to paint the bottom out too, which I should have done in the first place. But I painted the bottom out, let it dry, and then I hot glued and Weldbond glued this jar to the board, but I did it at the bottom, and then I added like a little lip at the back so that it would be kind of like a sign that stands on its own versus something that hangs. So that way, if the jar came off for whatever reason, it would not break and shatter to the floor. I just thought that that was a better solution to this just for now. Normally you could do a clamp that you would put on there and then screw onto the board, but because I didn't have the clamp, I modified it. Probably should have planned my project better, but I thought we had the clamps at home. I swear, and I think we do, because I had wanted to use those clamps for a different project where I was going to do 3 not spice but herb jars and hang them on the wall. And I know I bought the clamps, but I couldn't find them. The lip at the bottom is just 2 pieces of scrap wood that I attached with the Weldbond. I could have used wood glue. I'm not sure why I used Weldbond, but I used Weldbond and hot glue, and I just attached them to the bottom so it would kind of provide something for the sign to stand on. And like I said, because the jar is so low, it helps it stand. So it seems to be that every video I forget to hit the record button. So I forgot to hit the record button, but I had wrapped jute rope around the sign at the top and hot glued it at the back. And then I used my Cricut to cut out this home, not sign, but this home stencil. And I'm just going to be using some black acrylic paint to paint in the word home. I also wrapped the jute rope around the jar at the top just to kind of tie everything together. And when you're dabbing in, like whenever you use vinyl to like as a stencil and you're dabbing stuff in, make sure you're not using too much paint, because if you use too much paint, it'll bleed. So you don't want it to bleed, and just let it dry before you start removing the vinyl. And that's all there is to this. I added this lavender from the Dollar Tree that I had from last year, and there's the finished piece. It's another gorgeous piece. I love the way it turned out. Very Farmhouse Spring to me. Like I said, it's free to make because I had all the stuff on hand, and you can too. The only thing is, if you don't have the scrap pieces of wood, you could do it on one of the Dollar Tree signs that they have. You know, they have many signs that they sell during the spring and summer and Christmas and whatever, and just paint it out if you didn't have this. But again, it turned out really beautifully. It's going to look great in my spring decor, and I love it. So let me know what you guys think, which one you like better, if you're starting to decorate for spring or you're still on the Valentine's Day and winter theme, and when you start decorating for spring. Thank you so much for stopping by. We'll see you on my video on Friday. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Leave me a comment if you do, and letting me know which one you like better. Don't forget to check out the hosts of this challenge, Kiki's DIYs and Deco Easy, and the playlist, which it'll all be linked in my description below. Thank you so much again for watching. Have an excellent day.